This will be a video going over the basic features of Caption Pro. I've got a set of entertainment images here, so if you shoot for a different area such as sports or music photography, I'll do my best to point out any features that might be specific to that particular workflow. But for the time being, you may need to imagine that the images contain faces and scenarios relevant to your usual use case. Let's go ahead and launch the software, and as we do that, we can see that the only option available to us is to start a new project, so we'll do that. We're then presented with a few options in the project creation module. We can firstly create a name for our project, and also specify a watch folder. Any images that are currently in or that get added to our watch folder will be brought into our project for processing. You can skip this step and add images to your project manually if you like, but we'll go ahead and select a watch folder. A quick tip for certain workflows. If you pick your images out in other software like Photo Mechanic, then you can set up an empty watch folder in Caption Pro and move your key selects to that location in Photo Mechanic. That way you can be editing your images in other software while Caption Pro is processing and naming those images in the background. Moving on, we have what are called pre-recognition filters. These are project-wide rules dictating how the images get processed. The first one here is the max faces per image number. This number acts as a hard cap, limiting the number of faces processed per image. In other words, it dictates the maximum amount of faces you want the software to look for in each of your images. A good rule of thumb is to make this slightly higher than the maximum amount of names you will ever want to have in your captions. That way there's a bit of wiggle room, but you'll end up ignoring most unnecessary background faces that will only slow down the facial recognition process. This is particularly useful for sports photographers who might be frustrated with faces in the crowd being picked up by the software. Only use local face database is an option to disable the Caption Pro celebrity recognition for this project. This is useful if you know your local or agency database is well primed already for your job. Both of the above filters can only be affected on the project level prior to processing, and so cannot be changed on an image-to-image basis. Post-recognition filters, on the other hand, can be changed on an image-to-image basis, as we'll see shortly, but you can set project-wide defaults here as well. Checking guest mode will label any unknown people in your image guest for the sake of the caption. This is mainly useful for entertainment events and not so much for sports. The face size filter will filter out smaller faces from your image, and the face sharpness filter will filter out blurrier faces from your image. Finally, and this is most commonly used in a sports-related workflow, you can add a text replacement code file to be associated with your project here. Text replacement codes enable a user to type in user-defined codes into metadata fields, which automatically get replaced with a segment of text. We go into more detail about this in our documentation. Once we have created our project, if there are already images in the watch folder, they will begin to load in the background, but either way we will be immediately presented with our project metadata module. This is where you can set the metadata rules that will be applied automatically to all the images in your project. Set this up correctly and your captioning will simply consist of confirming the identities of the people in your images. In order to automate the names of people in your captions, you need to use these things called formulas. You add these into a field by pressing the equals button, and you can have different rules associated with different formulas. You can see here that in this people formula, I have specified that the names will be separated by a comma, and the final two names will be separated by an and. So it would read person A, comma, person B, and person C. You can also stipulate whether or not a prefix or a postfix should be applied as well. An example of a prefix could be referee, lord, or lady, and a postfix could be number 10 of Manchester City Football Club. These are labels attached to each person that you can edit in your local database, which we'll come to shortly. Once you've set up your project-wide metadata settings, you can share these with other people by selecting Export XMP Template. Likewise, if someone's given you an XMP template, you can import it here. These will include the formulas as well if they've been set up in Caption Pro. Moving on, if you're happy with how the metadata is set up and you're always going to be using the same settings, just save them as default at the bottom of the metadata template, then you won't have to worry about this every new project. At first glance, as we enter our project, we can see that we have our image thumbnails in the bottom left and the viewer for the selected image above that. On the right hand side of the UI at the bottom, we have our image specific metadata. Above that we have our filters, allowing us to filter out names from the image's name bar or caption. More on this in a second. Then to the right, at the top, we have the section of our UI dedicated to person identification. Underneath the selected face viewer will be our suggested matches, based on the Caption Pro celebrity database as well as your private database. The percentage match associated with a name or reference face should be taken with a pinch of salt. It's just a way of ordering multiple suggestions. If you select a person's name from here, it will associate the selected face with that name, and you'll then see that name appear down here in the name bar. The name bar beneath your image is what you'll want to be paying close attention to in order to know what names will be being pasted into all your relevant people formulas. So for instance here, if we switch from formulas to results in the metadata section, we can see this name being applied automatically into our caption description field for this image. As this first image also has some background faces, it's a good opportunity to show off our post recognition filters as well. These people with hollowed out face boxes have been picked up by the software but not added to our caption. Why is that? For this first face, we can see that they're being filtered out by our face sharpness filter, so they're too blurry to be considered worth naming, and also our guest filter. This means that we don't know their name and we want to ignore them. The person on the right has only been filtered out by our guest filter. If we enabled guest for this image, they would then be added to our name bar as guest, and therefore our caption as well. But we don't want to do that. In this image, we're happy that the software has correctly identified Scarlett Johansson, and that is all we want added to the caption. If you're still unsure about a suggested match though, you can always click on Search the Web, and a Google image search of the selected name will come up. Hopefully this will help you compare the selected face with images of the suggested person. If you want to name an image of a person that the software doesn't already know, then have the relevant face box selected and press Add Person. Once this person has been saved, the software will look for that person in all the other images in your project. And as before, the name will appear in the name bar for those images and the necessary caption. A quick mention of a feature that may be more applicable to the sports photographers out there, but if we've loaded a text replacement file into our project and we need to add one of our predefined phrases into the image's metadata, then you can just hit / wherever you want this applied, and either browse through your document's phrases or just complete the associated code and press enter. Then the phrase will be applied automatically. If you already use this feature in other software, it should be pretty straightforward, but if you would like to find out more, then you can find an in-depth explanation in our Help Center. If you're then happy with these images and want to save them, you have a few options. If you'd like to set them aside and save or export all of your images at the end of your project, then you can just move them over to the Confirmed tab by pressing S. Confirming an image locks in the name, so prevents other newly added faces from affecting the match accuracy, and also it adds the confirmed faces, so the faces of the named individuals, as a reference image for that person. For instance, if we go into the database record of Scarlett Johansson, we can see that it not only has the Caption Pro celebrity database record of her, but now it also has our newly added reference face. This will be used to find matches throughout the current project and saved forever in your personal or agency-wide database, constantly improving the facial recognition accuracy of everyone you've named. As we added Ashley James as a new person just now, the reference face was added automatically then, but from now on, confirming images of her will continue to add more reference faces to her database. Each person record has 10 reference faces available, so the first 10 images you add or confirm will populate this, but you can also add new ones or delete them manually from the Edit in Database menu. When you're happy with the images in your Confirmed tab, you can either export them from here or just save the metadata directly to the watched images in place. If speed is of the essence and you want to save as you go rather than waiting until the end of your project, then you can do. It just depends on where you want to save them. If you just want to save the metadata directly to the watched images, then as you browse through approving the names, you just need to hit shift+s, and it will confirm and apply the metadata directly to that image. It will save the confirmed faces as reference images and move the image over to the Exported tab so you know you're done with it. If instead of saving the metadata directly to the watched image, you'd like to send it out immediately, then go to the first image and hit E. Then the export modal will come up, allowing you to specify your export rules, so naming rules and destinations. You can set multiple disk and FTP destinations to export to. Then, after this has been carried out once, from then on you just need to hit Shift+E and it will automatically confirm and export the selected image to the last used export destination. Overall, once you have your project set up, all you need to do is be confirming the identities of the people in your images and hitting your desired Save Options shortcut. With the right understanding of the software, you can be burning through your edits in no time at all, growing your database for yourself and your team, and further accelerating identification accuracy and camera to sale time the more the software is used.